So today we are going to start with this session with Python, and the agenda for today is working with variables, working with data types, what are the conditional statements we have, the looping statements, and the slicing and indexing. So in the first session we have covered about the basics of Python by understanding like what are the different path you can choose like working with Python. As we have talked about, there are paths related to web application, related to data science, machine learning, IoT, cloud computing. So in approximately every field that are available we can use Python. Okay, so in the today's session we are just going to do the practical part, because till now we have completed all the theoretical understanding of Python and the things related to it. So I hope everyone has already installed the Python in their system. So let's go and deep dive and do the practical part today. Okay, so for that one, so first of all, for doing the practical part, you can use any of the IDEs that are available, like PyCharm you can look for. The another way is like you can use Google Colab, you can use Python that is already available in your system, or you can use any other platform where you can execute the Python 3. Okay, so for that I am going to first of all going to the platform that is called Google Colab. Okay, so either if you are running the Python on your PyCharm, so it's although good. So the Google Colab is being taken care, is a platform which is being taken care by Google itself, and it provides you the platform like the same as Jupyter. The environment is same, and you will find out a quite interactive platform, so where you can execute the code and you can see the output at the same time. Okay, so first of all we are going to understand how these things work. Okay, so I'm going to first of all write down a print statement, and here I'm going to write down, let's say, hello world. Okay, and we all know about the syntax of Python in the first session, like whenever we go with print function, so this print function prints out the values on your output on your console, and there is a no requirement to put a semicolon in every case, like as we do with the Java or any other programming language. Now the best thing is to learn and to implement that in Google Colab, we need to know how to run this particular cell. Okay, this is known as a shell. So for running that, either you can use a shortcut key that is called Shift plus Enter. If you push Shift plus Enter, so at the first time it is going to just take a minute time for connecting with your machine and implementing the same. So you can see at here it is been connecting, initializing it, and at the first time it will only take a few seconds, and after that your values are going to be executed. Now next time whenever you run it, you will get your output quite fast. That is the way to write down the things in Google Colab. Okay, I hope you have got the idea of how to implement the statements, the programming code which we are going to write down in the Google Colab. Yes, is that clear to all? Great. No, so whenever we talk about this print statement, it doesn't store the data in variable. Okay, so storing the data in variable is being done into a different way. So let's say you declare a variable as var1. Okay, so in other programming language, how you declare a variable? For declaring the variable in other programming language, so whenever you give a variable name, so after that you have to define the data type. Okay, what is the data type? The way of storing the value. Okay, which type of values you are going to store. And here in other programming language you give a variable name, after that you give a data type, then according to the operator we have like equals to or colon equals to, whatever data type we have, we assign a particular value to it. Okay, this is the basic syntax, how we write down a variable and how we give or assign a value to it. But in Python, as Python is a dynamically typed language, so we do not have to type the data type, so it automatically takes the data type whenever you are going to execute the statement. So how to do that? So let's say we declare a var1 and let's say we declare a value as 10. Now whenever you write down the same, the value has been taken, variable has been created, and the 10 value has been assigned to var1. Okay, now how to get the value? Okay, so you call the var1 variable inside your print statement and the values has been printed for you. Okay, but how we will know what type of data type is there with var1? To know the data type, you have to use one of the functions, the inbuilt functions that are available in Python, and that is known as a type. Okay, so in the print statement you can call a type function. So this type function is going to print the data type of your variable. Okay, and if you run it again, so it will show it is of int class. Okay, so the class is an object we will cover later on, but here you can see it has automatically taken this data type, that is an integer data type in var1, and it has shown it like it is belonging to, from where it is belonging from the integer data type here. Clear? Yes, everyone got it till now? Great. Now let's move on and let's see how how the other data types are there. Okay, so before that we need to understand, whenever we work with Python, there are several data types that are available. So there are data types like integer, there is a data type, let's say string, we have a float, we have complex. Apart from this, anyone who can tell me? There are list, tuple, we have dictionary, and we have set, and we have boolean. Okay, so these are the data types that are available in Python, and for the same we are going to understand, like among these categories, okay, like this different data types, what are the data types that are mutable in nature and what are the data types that are immutable in nature. Okay, so we are going to understand which are the data types which are mutable in nature and which are the data types which are immutable in nature. Okay, for understanding the same, so we need to remember this thing, which are the mutable data types and which are immutable. So for mutable means we can change the values of your variable whenever you declare with that data type. Okay, means the values can be changed. So here, can you just give an example if you know that? So list is a mutable data type, we will talk about it. Dictionary is a mutable data type, set is a mutable data type, boolean is a mutable data type, and the other cases where immutable and other places, so the integer is a immutable data type, the string is a immutable data type, and the float and complex also comes in the immutable data type, means their values are going to not to be changed. Okay, so that is why, so these are being categorized as immutable data type, that are integer and string, and I will give you a practical implementation and the output why these data types are being taken as the immutable one. Clear, everyone? Okay, so let's start with the basic one, that is called integer, and how we assign a data type as a string data type to any of your variable. So as we have already discussed the same thing, like to assign a value to your variable, you call the variable name, you call the value, and you assign at any value. So let's say if you assign it as 10.0, so it will be taken as a float itself. Okay, so we will talk about it, what are the different value, how we assign it. Now so let's say we talk about the string data type. To assign a value to a string data type, so we can give the value either in double quotes. So if you see, I am putting a value in double quotes, so let's say hello world. If you run the same and if you print the type of your var2, so you see the data type has been printed as a string data type. Apart from that, if you take the same variable and you assign the value as in single quotes, and if you print out the same, like what is the type of this data type, so again you are going to get this string data type. Okay, so remember one thing in Python, either you write down the things in double quotes or either you write down the things in single quotes. At both the places you are going to get the same data type, that is your string data type. Okay, so how we can make a difference, like okay, that is a string data type, or at which places like it's a good habit to use a double quotes or a single quotes. For the same, make it a habit whenever you declare any string, okay, so to put that string in double quotes. Okay, let's say I declare a variable third and I try to assign a particular string, but now that string value are going to be present inside multiple lines. Okay, so inside multiple lines your values are going to be present. So let's say, hi, welcome to REGex Software. Okay, so if I'm executing the same, so you see I have put it the data in the double quotes, and if you try to assign it, so you see it is giving you an error, and that is a syntax error because this doesn't know, okay, this is either a string data or any other data type. So if you are interested to assign any particular string in multi-line, okay, if your string data is present in multi-line, and what is the string data? The collection of characters. Okay, the collection of characters is known as a string. Okay, so H is a character, E is a character, Y is a character. So if we make a collection of these characters, they form a string. So to give that, we either use the 3 times double quotes and ending with the 3 times double quotes. Okay, so we have printed 3 times double quotes in the starting and 3 times double quotes in the end, and if you execute, now the variable has been created, and if you see, the data type is going to be the same as a string data type. Okay, but this is the representation of your string data in form of the multi-line. So if your string data is present in multi-lines, you can print it out like the same. Great, everyone. Is that clear to everyone present here, like what we have talked about till now? Yes, is that clear? Okay, so what this print type of sorry, I just put a mistake, it should be var3. Okay, so that is a string data type, so that was a typo. Alright, now let's move on and let's see the another part, like how we can do and implement the other parts. Now you can also create a multi-line string by putting the data in 3 times single quotes, so that will also be taken as your string data. Okay, but in Python we make it a you can say a tradition. If you are interested to put a string, so we generally use a triple quotes, or we generally use the double quotes here. Okay, triple quotes means 3 times this symbol. Okay, and whenever you want to execute any sort of a comment, okay, comment is for just understanding and for documenting your code, whatever code you are implementing or whatever code you are trying to implement. So for understanding the same, we give a comment, and in Python, first of all, the comment is being given in single line. So if you see, if you write down anything before after the hash, okay, it is being taken as a comment, and that will never going to be executed. And if you, let's say, print out any message again, so you see that comment has not been executed. So comment is basically for the documentation purpose, and here the first way is to use a comment in a single line. So this is known as a single line comment. Okay, and in case you want to do the comment in multiple lines, again for the same, what you can do, you can use 3 times single quotes. Okay, so if you assign this particular value to a variable, so that means it is going to take as a string data type, but if you don't assign it to any of the variable, it is going to behave as your comment. Okay, so if you see, it is going to take as your comment. So this is how we implement a multi-line comment in Python, and for implementing only one line comment, so we give a hash. Okay, so we will be coming on the part of mutable and immutable data type. Don't worry, just give me a second. I hope this part is clear to all. Great. Now we are going to talk about what were the mutable and immutable data types. Okay, so we all know, like, mutable is been a term that is being used for any of the variable whose values are going to be changed. Okay, if we can assign or we can reassign the value or we can change the value of any variable, that will be taken as a mutable data type. Okay, apart from that, we have another one that is called immutable data types. So these are the data types whose values are never going to be changed, okay, or whose values are going to be remain the same. So now let's see how we can implement the same and how we can denote, like, either the integer data type is mutable or immutable. Okay, so for implementing the same, let's say we declare a variable, let's say num1, and we assign a value as 10. Okay, now to see the memory location, okay, of this variable where it is saved, so we give a hashing value. Okay, in Python, the Python is never going to show you the actual memory location of where you have saved the variable, but to get the same, you can use a function which will show a encoded value, okay, an encrypted value which shows the memory location in this case. And for printing out the memory location where that num1 variable has been saved into a memory, we have a id function. Okay, and in that id function we can use a num1 variable, and what it will do, it will show the memory location where the num1 is present. Clear? Got it? Now in case we declare any other variable that is called num2 and we assign a value as 20, and if we try to print out the location of the memory where that num2 is present, so that value is going to be present in a different memory location, as you can see in the last. Now in the third one, if you print out any other variable with the same value as 10, or let's say with the same value as 20, so what you will find out, you will find out this particular place, this num3 is going to share the same address as with the num2. Okay, so if I am showing here, so you see the num2 is having a value 20, it has this particular memory location, and for num3, that is the num3 variable, also share the same memory location. Okay, so this memory location is basically a place where your data is going to be saved for your variable. Okay, clear? Now, so as you can see, this num3 is 20 and num2 is 20. So what happens here? Okay, so to understand that is the inbuilt thing of Python, so we need to understand. So whenever we declare the same, okay, a particular memory location is there, fine. So whenever you call num1, So this num1 is basically a variable which is a object of the class. We will come to this part later on. Okay, so you can say it refers to a particular memory location inside your RAM where your data is going to be saved. So this num1 is basically an object of your integer class, as we have seen earlier on. So whenever you called a print statement of any variable, so what you find out, it shows you something called as a class. So what is that class? So it is a blueprint. Okay, we will talk about it. What is that blueprint? In simple terms, you can say it's a architecture. So whenever you try to build a house, so what the engineer, the civil engineer does, so he basically prints out a blueprint. Okay, how much rooms will be there, how much kitchen will be there, how much bathrooms will be there. So in the same way, whenever we declare anything, we declare it in a form of a blueprint, and that blueprint in our programming language is known as the classes. And for representing those classes, we have objects. Okay, so like for representing a room, let's say we can use a keyword R, so that is a representation. So for representing the hall in my house, so I can use H. Okay, that represent a hall. For implementing the bathroom, we can use a B. So for implementing or representing the classes, we have a particular thing that is called object, which represents the classes in Python. Okay, so this num1 is basically an object which refers to the classes here, and the class right now is an integer class. Clear? This part is clear till now? Yes, kindly respond so that we can move forward. Great. Now, so as we have talked that num1 represents the object of my integer class, and this num1, whenever we assign a value, so this object of my integer class refers to a memory location. So let's say this num1 represents my data that is available here with the memory as any memory, and the data is 20. Okay, whenever you create any other variable of num2, and that num2, and let's say we assign the value as 20 here in the same case, so this num2 also represent what? It also represent the same memory location here. Okay, so they both share the same memory location in our case, as we can see here. Like whenever we declare that num2 is 20 and num3 is 30, so they share the same memory location in our case. So the same concept is here whenever we talk about this thing in Python with the integer data type here. Okay, so they share the both memory locations. So the 20 is being shared with num1 and num2. Now whenever you are trying to reassign a value, okay, so for num3, okay, so for num3 variable, let's say the earlier the memory location was this one. Now you reassign a value, or let's say you increment a value. Okay, so let's say you call num3 equals to, and you put up any value. Let's say num3 is equals to 30 now, and if you try to print out what is the value of your num3 and the ID of your num3 now, so what you find out? You find out the memory location for your num3 was this one. Now the values has been changed to this value. Okay, so what happened? So that num3 that represents here, okay, let me write down again. So that num3 that representing the 20 has a particular representation to this memory location in our case, where the num3 was holding a value as 20. Now next time whenever we reassign the value, so the memory location is going to be different for this num3, and now it will share the different memory location. It is going to refer a different memory location in our case, and this is going to be a new memory location like here. Okay, so basically this num1 okay, is referring to the same memory location as the earlier one, but the num3 now refers to a different memory location. So whenever we talk about the integer data type, okay, so what we do, so in the integer data type, whenever we reassign a value to any variable, so it refers to a different memory location, and in terms of memory location where your variable values are saved, so that we call it as a immutable data type. So that is the reason this is known as a immutable data type, because that memory location where that 20 is present is still holding the same value. Okay, so you see that where we have saved that 20, okay, was this location. So this location is still present, okay, we haven't changed the data in this particular memory location. We have created a new memory location and we have reassigned the value. Okay, clear? So that is the reason here this is being called as a call by reference. Okay, and this is the reason why in Python everything, okay, is related to objects, and the reason is why this integer data type is being taken care as the immutable data type. Clear? Yes, kindly respond like whether that is clear or not. Alright, great. And let's move forward. So the same concept relates to your string data whenever we talk about the string data and its immutable nature. Now we are going to talk about the other part, like how we represent the another things that are available. So for example, if we simply call a print statement, okay, so in a print statement, let's say you want to print out two messages at the same time, so you separate it by a space and you print out here. So if you see, both the messages has been printed, let's say hi and world, and they are being separated by a white space, but I have separated both the different values or both the different statement by a comma. Okay, so in Python, okay, everything, this print is basically a function. Okay, everything is basically related to functions and objects. We will talk about it once we move forward day after day. So here we have several other arguments. Arguments are basically the options that are available with every functions where we can change the behavior. Okay, that you can say that as an argument. So here we have an argument that is called separator. Okay, so in this separator, if you assign a new value that is called, let's say, a hyphen, and if you try to run the same, so you see now the two values has been reassigned and you see a hyphen has been printed and the two values are being now separated by a hyphen in our case. So by default the separator in Python is set to a white space, so this is the default value, but you can change it, you can change the behavior of the same by assigning any of the optional parameter here. Okay, so these are the optional parameters we have. Apart from that, if we print out a next statement, and if you try to execute the same, you see the new statement has been printed at the last. So apart from this, whenever we print out the two statements, so we have a particular value that is called a particular parameter that is called /n. Okay, so this /n represent a new line character. So in Python, whenever you call a print statement to print out the data, okay, we have the /n and this /n represent a new line character. So that means after implementing the same, a new line character will be inserted and whatever you print out that are going to be executed in the new line itself. Okay, that are going to be implemented in new line. So if you want to change the same behavior, you can use a one more argument that is called end, and you can change the end here to /t. So what this /t represent? A tab character. So if you see, the new lines are being separated by a new line character /n in our earlier case, and if you run it now, so the data is going to be represented by a tab here. So once you print out this statement, so after finishing that, the end separator has been given a tab, so a new line which is going to be printed is going to be separated by a tab now. Clear? Great. So this was about the print statement, okay, till now, and let's move forward and let's see some more and great thing. Okay, so let's see how we represent a string. Okay, so we are going to talk about the string formatting now. So what is that string formatting? So there might be a cases, let's say in any of the string data, okay, like I am interested to print out any statement, let's say hi, welcome to the user, and let's say I print out a username as REGex. Okay, so let's say I declare a variable as data and I reassign a value as REGex and I try to print it out here. Okay, so what you find out? You find out you have printed out the statement hi, welcome to the user REGex, and you see the output has been printed here. Okay, but in case you want to use this variable data inside this particular string value, so how you can represent the same? Okay, so for representing the same, okay, we have to use the string formatting. So with the help of a string formatting, we can format our data, our variables, and we can assign it into any of the string values. And for assigning it, we use a f keyword here. Okay, so we put a f keyword, so this f represents the string formatting to be done. And for representing any variable into your string data, so if you normally run it, so you see it has taken, this data has been taken as normally a string value. Okay, but if you want to represent this data as a variable, so you put that in curly braces, and whenever you execute it next time, so you see that data is going to be replaced with the value that we have assigned to this variable. Clear? So this is how we perform a formatting of my string data in Python. So that is known as a string formatting in Python. There are multiple more approaches which we can use. For example, if we represent the same thing, okay, but in a different way. For example, here what I do, let's say I call this data as regex, and I, rather than printing out the value, let's say I assign it to this variable again. Okay, so let's say I declare a variable that is called message. So this message is a variable which holds a greeting statement. Okay, this is a greeting statement that is held in a message variable, and you print it out in the last, let's say message. You see the same output. Okay, there are no changes in the same. But what I do, let's say I try to reassign a different value to your data now. So for data, if you now change it to, let's say, REGex Software, and you try to print out the message here again, so what you find out? So ultimately, as we are running it next time by changing the data value, so it should be a regex software now, but when we run it, so the output is going to be same in both the cases, and in both the cases whenever I am calling this message variable, so the values are going to be same. Why it is going to be same? Because in this case, whenever you declare any variable like such, okay, so this variable holds the particular memory whenever we call it. So whenever we run it on the first time, so this message variable holds the value into your memory location, into your stack memory, and for the same, whenever it assigns the value here, so this data is going to be holding the same value here. Okay, so this message is going to holding the same value as with the data, and that value is regex. So if you change it later on, still it holds the same value because it has already occupied the data into your memory. Okay, so that is the reason you get the similar values in our case whenever we call it again by changing the value in my data type of my variable. So what is the second format we can use, and the most preferred way of implementing the same, that is a using of dot format function for string formatting. So we use this approach for doing the string formatting in our case. So for doing that, so let's say you call hi, we print out the same thing, welcome to the user, and now for printing out the value, okay, we again use the curly braces, but rather than using a f keyword, we come in the last and we called a dot format function, and in that dot format function we pass on the value, whatever value we want to assign. Okay, so let's say you call the value as let's say regex. So this regex value is the argument for my format function. So this argument is going to be replaced here, and you are going to see you printed out the value here after the user. And next time whenever you are going to run the same, you see a different output is there, like welcome to the user regex. And in case you want to pass on multiple values, you can also pass it in the same way. Let's say today is Saturday. Okay, for Saturday I am going to pass the value from the format again, and we pass on the Saturday here. So you see both the values has been substituted with the help of a curly braces, and we pass on the value to the curly braces inside as an argument from the dot format function. Clear? Yes, tell me when that is clear to you. Okay, so we can so it's provide you with one more flexibility, like here. So the first value is going to be replaced here, the second value is going to be replaced here. But if you want to change the values, means you want to use the Saturday first and the regex value at the second time, so you can give a position here. So the position can be given as 0 and 1. So this 0 represent the first value in my format, and 1 represent the second value in my format, and if you run the same, you get the similar output. But if you change the values here as 1 and you change it from rather than 1 to 0, so you find out the values has been changed. Okay, so in this way you can pass on multiple arguments inside my dot format functions in Python for the string formatting here. Okay, you can use anything. Okay, there are no issues, you can replace it with any value here in the dot format. So it's not necessary to be passing here as any direct value, you can pass it as a variable or any other data types which are present. Correct Lakshmi. So we can pass any data type with the dot format function in our case. So this dot format is used for the string formatting, and here we pass on the values as in the form of arguments, and this basically represent the 0th position, the 0 position, and this value represent the first position. So if you want to change the positions of your data, let's say if you want to use this Saturday as the first one, so you pass it as a 1. So whenever you are going to put any value inside the curly braces, so this 1 represent the Saturday now, and here whenever you use a 0, so this represent a regex. So if you print it out, so first of all the Saturday is there, and then the second time the regex has been printed. Alright, now let's move forward and let's see the more things that are available in Python. Okay, so now we are going to start working with operators. So before that, we need to understand what are operators and why there is a requirement of using the operators. So operators are basically the notations or the symbols that have a particular functioning. Okay, what type of functioning? So let's say we call 1 plus 2. Okay, so here the 1 and 2 are basically known as the operands, and this plus is known as the operator. So operator basically allows you to perform a particular task, a particular operation, okay, over the two operands that are available. Okay, so in our case we have lot of operators to work on, and the operator are there for variety. There are a variety of operators that are available, and each of the operator has their own working. Okay, for example, we have an operator like arithmetic. Apart from arithmetic, we have comparison operator. Apart from the same, we have assignment. We have a bitwise. We have a membership, and we have the identity operator. Okay, so we are going to see one after another, like what are they, what are the arithmetic operators, how we use it, and what are the different approaches we usually take care for the same. So the first one we have, that is a arithmetic operator. So what is the use of this arithmetic operator? So the arithmetic operator is used to perform the arithmetic task, so like plus, minus, multiplication, division, floor division, modulus, exponential, and lots so. Okay, so we all know about the basics one, like we have 1 plus 2, so that is going to perform addition, 1 minus 2, subtraction, 1 into 2, multiplication, division, and so on. Now we have one more thing to take care. Let's say we have a number 3, and if we try to divide it by 2, so what we will get? We will get the division of both the numbers, and the division we receive is 1.5. okay, or let's say if you divide 20 by 3, so you see the division value you have received up to the 13 decimal places. Okay, this is a normal division. So apart from this normal division, we have one more division, that is called a floor division. Okay, so what is that floor division? So the floor division basically represent the value, okay, of integer 1. So whenever you divide any value, okay, so let's say 20 by 3, so according to the floor division, so you are going to get the 6 here. Okay, so this floor division represent the numeric value, the integer value of your division whenever you perform any sort of a division of two operands. So after dividing the two values, so whatever integer value you receive, so you are going to represent here with the help of a floor division. So it doesn't matter like what is the decimal part we have. So either you have 999, so the values are not going to be round off, so you are going to get only the integer part, like whatever values you have. Clear? So that we have as a floor division. Clear, guys? Apart from the full floor division, we have the exponential, which gives like any data with raised to power something. So let's say if you call 2 exponential 3, and exponential is an operator that is being denoted by the 2 multiplication sign, and if you run the same, so that means you are telling 2 raised to power 3, and it basically represents 2 into 2 into 2. Okay, so you should get 8. Fine, so that is we have as a exponential. Okay, so those who do not understand, so division is basically Okay, the normal division basically gives you a divide value up to the 13th number. So you divide any value, so you get 6.6666. so this is normal division. So we have one more division that we term as a float division, and in the float division we generally give the integer part of our division value. So the division value was 6.666. so here in the float division you are only going to get the integer part, not the decimal part. ठीक है, जो भी आपका integer part होगा, जो भी आपकी value होगी before decimal, it is going to be printed, not after the decimal part. Clear now? Is that clear? जब भी आप float division करोगे, so कोई भी value आपके पास present है after the decimal, वो कभी भी आपकी values को round off नहीं करेगी, आपको सिर्फ वही value मिलेगी जो decimal से पहले present है. So that we have a float division. So we understood the working of my exponential, plus minus, float division, normal division, multiplication. Okay, but whenever we talk about this operand, okay, and operators, so these operators has a variety of priority. Okay, priority means key, like if we have a multiple occurrence of the operators, so which operator is going to be executed first, that we termed as a priority. So here we have the priority to be set. So the most priority is, the topmost priority is given to exponential. After that the priority is given to multiply, divide, float division and modulus. So they share the same priority but less than the priority of exponential. Apart from that, we have the last priority to plus and minus. Okay, so these are the priority which we set: exponential highest priority, multiply, divide, float division, modulus, they have the same priority but less than the exponential bar or more than the plus and minus, and the plus and minus have the least priority among all the operators that are available. Now to understand the same, okay, remember one thing, the execution, the flow of execution. Okay, so if you remember, like in our 10th or 8th standard, might be everyone has gone through that phase where they have learned something called as a distributive property in mathematics. They have learned about the associative property and many more properties. Okay, those who don't know about the associative property, they can simply go on Google and they will find out property like such, like if we multiply three values like a plus b, and if you then add a third value, or in case you call the a plus and you add on the b plus c, okay, both are going to be same. For example, you take a as 10, b as 20 and c as 30. So if you add a plus b, so that will be 10 plus 20, it will be 30, 30 plus 30, it will be 60. Okay, or if you add here b plus c, so that will be 20 plus 30, that will be 50, and 50 if you add a as 10, so you are going to get 60. Okay, so in both the cases, if the values are 10, 20 and 30, so in both the cases you are going to get the same output. Okay, so that we termed as a associative property. Okay, that we termed as a associative property. So this associative property, okay, tells you, like if you execute anything from here like this or from here like this, so you are going to get the same output. Okay, so here we talk about the first one, that is called the exponential. Okay, so this exponential has a particular working in a particular order. Let's say if we have the multiple occurrences of your exponential operator, okay, so the execution, according to the associative property, the execution will start from right to left. Okay, again I am telling, if there are multiple occurrences of your exponential operator, so the flow is going to be executed from right to left, and in other cases the execution will always be from left to right. Okay, so for example, let's say if I put 2 raised to power 3, so we know we will be getting 8, and after 8 if I put exponential to 2, okay, so we should get an output at 64, but whenever I am going to execute the same, I am going to get a different output. I am going to get the 512. So why we have received the 512? Because as I have already told you, if there are multiple occurrences of your exponential data, so its execution is going to be started from right to left. So first of all, which data is executed? First of all, the data of your 3 raised to power 2 is executed, so you get 9. Okay, so this gives you a 9. So after representing the 9, so your data becomes 2 raised to power 9 and it gives you the results as 512. Clear? Because its execution according to the associative properties goes from right to left. Clear? This part is clear? Okay, so apart from this, what I do, let's say if we connect in a different way, let's say if I give you a particular one, let's say 1 plus 3 multiplied by 4 divide by 2 minus 2. So what should be the answer? If I call 1 plus 3 multiplied by 4 divide by 2 minus 2, so what should be the answer? Okay, so for executing the same, look after the priority which is being set, okay, which has the highest priority. Okay, the operand with the highest priority, look for the same and then try to execute this. First we said see the priority, then we see the associative property here. So priority किसकी सबसे ज़्यादा है? Priority is set for exponential. क्या exponential है? Is there a presence of exponential? No. So we don't take it. Then we check for other operators. So try to see the output. Okay, remember one thing, one mistake everyone has performed is we get a value as 5. No, we don't get a value as 5, we get a value as 5.0. Okay, why? Because we have performed a float division, sorry, we have divided a value. So first we multiply, so 3 into 4 it's 12, 12 divided by 2 we get 6.0. 6.0, then we have the priority of plus and minus from left to right. So 6 plus 6.0 plus 1, 7.0, 7.0 minus 2, it will be 5.0. Okay, so that is the reason we get 5.0, not the 5. Okay, don't do this mistake. Okay, now let's try to do one more and let's try to see what is the output you're going to get. So let's say if we call 2 by 3 float division by 2 expo, then we have the float division by 2 and let's say multiplication by 5 and divide by 2. Okay, try to see what is the output we can receive. Okay, so for executing the same, we are going to receive an output that is called 2.5. okay, why we receive a 2.5? First of all, if you see, all the operators have the same property, they have the same priority, and according to the priority, execution will go from left to right. So 6 float division by 2 we get 3 modulus to 1 into 5 5 divided by 2 we get 2.5. okay, great. So that we have as a associative property and the priority rule for the operators of my arithmetic operators in this case. So apart from this, we have other operators like comparison. Okay, so comparison operators are used to compare the values. Like we have the operator like we have var1, and let's say we call it as a 10. And if you are interested to compare, let's say either var1 is going to have a value as var2. Okay, so if you are trying to compare like either both the values are equal, so we use a 2 times equal operator. Okay, so we have a values in which we try to know whether the two values are equal or not, and that we represent with the equal to sign. Then if we want to compare like either the two values are not equal, so we represent it with the exclamation and equals to. Apart from that, we have like operators like less than equals to, we have greater than equals to, we have less than, and we have a greater than. Okay, so they gives you a value as a boolean, okay, like true or false, whether the output is same or you receive the condition as true, so you receive a true. If both the values are going to be different according to the condition, you are going to get a false. Okay, now apart from that, we have something called as assignment operator. Okay, so if you talk about the assignment operator, that is used to assign a value to your operands. For example, if you call var1 as 30, and for this var1 if you want to assign a value, so either you can reassign a value to this var1 as var1 plus 10, so you will see you will get a value as what? You will get a value as 40. Okay, or if you want to reassign it again, so the best approach is you can use the assignment operator like here. So you can call var1 plus equals to 10, so you are going to perform a plus operation to your var1 itself. So this is known as the assignment operator, where you increases the value to your left operand. Okay, and what is the left operand? The var1 is a left operand. So you can apply in the same way with minus equals to, okay, multiply equals to, floor division equals to, normal division equals to, modulus equals to, and so on. Okay, so executions are going to be the same for any other operator in our case. Clear? Now apart from this, we have the other operators that we have as a bitwise operator. Okay, bitwise in simple term means we are going to execute the things in form of a bits. Okay, so every number is being represented. If you have gone through the micro services, or sorry, there was a particular course in engineering colleges I have seen, like I don't remember, like microservices, or there was some names, okay, that was given, where we work with a particular machine where every number is represented in form of a 0 and 1. Okay, so that we call as a bits. So here we also represent the number in form of a bits, and we work on the same. Okay, so whatever value we have, that are going to be performed in form of a bits, and we are going to execute it. So let's say we have a number, let's say number as 8. Okay, so how we represent the number 8 or any other number? So let's say we have a number 8, 7 and 6. Okay, so how we represent a number? So whenever we talk about numbers, so that is represented in form of a bits. So it is, remember one thing, so it is always represented like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 bits, 32 bits, 64 bits, and so on. Okay, you can go to any bits like that. Yeah, microprocessor. Okay, thank you. Now if you try to represent this 8, okay, how this is going to be represented? So take these numbers, okay, and tell me, so if you take this number, so which numbers can be used to make a value 8? Okay, so only I can use 8 itself to make a number 8. So I can call this 8 as 1, and we can put other values as 0. Okay, so let me use the notepad for the same. Let's say for representing the number in 8, 4, 2, 1 format, so for representing the value 8, we can use what? We can use this 8 itself, and we can have the another value as 0. if we represent 7, how this 7 can be represented? By combining 4 plus 2 plus 1. Okay, so the first value will be 0 and the other values are going to be 1 1 1. How we are going to represent 6? By combining 4 and 2 here. So we put other values as 0 and we put the 4 and 2 as 1 1 and we put other values as 0. Okay, so this is the basically representation of any number in form of a bits. इस फॉर्मेट में हम कोई भी नंबर को बिट्स में डिनोट करते हैं, ठीक है। अब नेक्स्ट टाइम अगर मैं इसी चीज़ को कॉल करने वाला हूँ इन फॉर्म ऑफ अ बिट वाइज ऑपरेटर, तो वो चीज़ें कैसे वर्क करेगी, ठीक है। अब बिट वाइज ऑपरेटर भी दो तरीके से काम करता है, ठीक है। पहला होता है एंड ऑपरेटर, फर्स्ट इज योर एंड ऑपरेटर. The second operator we have is a binary operator that is called a OR. Okay, so this represent a OR and the another one represent the AND. Okay, so the first one is AND and this is also known as a binary AND. Okay, because it's going to work on binary numbers and binary OR. So remember one thing, whenever we are going to work with binary AND, okay, A and D. So let's say we give 7 or let's say 6 and 7. Okay, so what value you are going to receive? You are going to receive that value, okay, where if both the bits are 1, okay, then you are going to represent as 1. So 6 is going to represent it as what? 0 1 1 0 and the 7 is going to be represented as what? 0 1 1 1. So if you perform an AND operation, so in the AND operation what you are going to see? You are going to see which value is both 1. Okay, so in places where both the values are 1, so you are going to copy 1, otherwise 0. So 0 1 1 0. Clear? I am repeating again, in both the bits on the same places, whenever you find out 1, okay, in both the bits, so you put a 1 here, otherwise 0. So here if you have 0 and 1, so you represent 0. In case you have 1 and 1 in both the places, so you represent 1. Again if you have 1 and 1 here, so you represent it as 1, and in other cases you represent it as 0. Okay, so in simple terms, now in Hindi, जहाँ भी आप लोगों के पास दोनों पोजीशंस पे, दोनों बिट्स की पोजीशन पे 1 1 हुआ, वहाँ पे we represented as a 1, otherwise we represented the number as 0. Okay, so output we have received is 0 1 1 0, and if we see that 0 1 1 0 is same as 6. Okay, so if we represent the 6 and 7, so what we are going to see? We are going to see a value that is called 6. Okay, so that is known as a binary AND. We have a binary OR. So what we do in the binary OR? In the binary OR, if both the places the 0 is present, so we represent it with 0, otherwise we represent it with 1. Let's say in any of the bit position, if there is at least 1 available, so we represented it 1, otherwise 0. So when both the places the 0 is present, so we give 0, otherwise we give 1. So what is the value it represents? It represents now 7. So whenever you call 6 or 7, so you are going to get 7. Clear? Okay, so in this one we have lot of other operators like left shift, right shift, negotiation, XOR. Okay, but we will be coming on it like when there is a requirement. Okay, so just forget about the other operator. Just for understanding, I have just told to you what are these bitwise operators. Now, so we have the other operators like AND, OR, NOT. Okay, and what are they? So we have the other operators that is called logical operators like AND, OR and NOT. So what this AND, OR and NOT represent? So these AND, OR and NOT are represented for performing the expressions. Okay, if you want to perform multiple expressions, so you use the AND operator or operator or not operator. Okay, let's say if you want to check both the condition, whether both the conditions are true, so then you use the AND operator. If you want to see only one condition is true, we see the OR operator. And if you want to represent any value, let's say if we have a value that is true and we want to represent it as a false, so we use a NOT operator. Okay, so that thing will come clear when we go with the conditional statement with the working of if clause. Okay, the if statement, whenever we are going to execute it, we are going to see the output of the same. Okay, so I am not telling you in detail because you are going to execute it later on. Now then we have a membership operator. Okay, so what this membership operator is going to do, okay, it's a good one to implement. So membership operator are basically used to evaluate whether a particular element is a member in any of the structure or any of the Python data type. Okay, for example, let's say I represent a value s and I call s in regex. Okay, and if I try to execute it, so what you find out false, means the s keyword is not present into regex. Okay, but if I represent any number as regexian, okay, so you true, because this s represents a character inside your data type. And what is the data type? So this is a string data type. So the same can go with any other value. Let's say if we have a list, we will talk about it how we create a list. So let's say we create a list 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, and we call like any number 10 is available inside my list 1, so you will definitely get false. But if you represent any number that is available in list 1, so you are going to get a true. So that means this in operator will evaluate to true if the first operand, okay, is a member or it is available in the second operand. Clear? If the first operand is available in the second operand, if the first value is available in the second operand, then it is going to be evaluated as a true. So it is known as a membership operator. And apart from that, we have something called as a not in. Okay, so not in is opposite. So either, so one is not present in list 1. Okay, so I'm asking like 1 is not available in list 1, so you are going to get false because you have the value. So if you represent any other number, let's say 100, so we know 100 is not present in your list 1. Okay, so you are asking like 100 is not available in list 1. Yes, that is true, and you are going to get true. Okay, so we have a not in here also. Clear? So in operator is clear and not in is clear. Yes, is that clear, guys? Great. Now, so we have the last operator that is a little one different, okay, which you cannot find it on other cases, that we have as a identity operator. Okay, so what is that identity operator? So identity operator basically means it is going to evaluate, okay, whether a particular element refers to a particular class or a data type. Let's say for let's say any number, okay, I want to check whether that number is available as from my class of integer or from my class of string, or whether the type is of integer data type or the type is a string data type, then we call as a identity operator. Okay, so let's say if we call 10 is of type int. Okay, so just a second. Okay, so here what I represent, okay, I try to see like whether the 10 is present in type 1. So okay, just give me a second. So if I call this one, okay, so let's say I represent it in a different way. So let's say if I call like any variable as 20, and what I say, let's say if I call like whether that element, okay, of my variable x is of same type of my int. Okay, so you see true. Okay, why you got true? Because this x already, okay, in our earlier case, whenever I call normally like this, okay, so what was happening, so this x was being taken as the object number. Okay, it refers to the object number. Okay, but whenever I call like either the type of my x variable is same as of my integer class, okay, I am going to check whether the type of my variable x is of same type of my integer class, so I call it as true. Okay, if I change to any other value, let's say the str, so that means a string, so it is going to give you a false. Okay, so the other operator which we have, that is called my identity operator, okay, is used to evaluate whether the value we have is presented. Okay, so whether it is being presented here in particular class or of a particular data type. Clear? Fine. Now so let's move forward and let's see the another part, that is more that is called my conditional statement. Okay, so what is that conditional statement? So conditional statements are the one in which we evaluate a condition to be true or false. Okay, for example, if you say any of the web application, they may not allow you if you have the age less than 18. Okay, let's say earlier on, like if you see on Google itself, so if your age is, if you're trying to create a Gmail account by putting your date of birth, I think less than 14 years. Okay, so less than 14, or I don't remember the exact number, so there is a parental control thing that is there. Okay, so you need to give your identification, your parents email ID as a reference to create an account if your age is less than 14 or 18 years. So I don't remember the exact name. Okay, but that is the case. So the same thing is there, so there is a particular condition that is being applied. So the same sort of a conditions are being there whenever you write down any of the program according to some condition. Okay, it's like you have a condition. Okay, like if you want to be connected with regex, okay, you have to join the Telegram group. Okay, because there we put up the updates. Fine, that is a sort of a condition. Okay, so in the same way, like there are a lot of conditions we execute whenever we want to write down any program in Python, and that we implement with something called as a if-else statements. So the if-else statement are used to evaluate the condition, and if the conditions are true or false, we execute a certain task. Okay, so the first one we have is a if statement. Okay, so it's like the syntax is quite simple. We call the if statement, we put up the condition. After putting a condition, there is no requirement to put the curly braces. We simply put a colon, and after putting a colon, you see I am coming inside my if condition and I execute my statement to be executed. Okay, for example, let's say I declare a variable, okay, num1 as 10, okay, and I am going to compare whether that num1 is equals to 10, or let's say greater than equals to 10. This is my condition. Okay, I am checking key number 1 is greater than or equals to 10. So this is my condition. Then I call a colon. So this colon is used to tell, okay, I have put it my condition. So if my condition is true, then you put a enter and you come to the next line and you say the statement. Okay, the statement like what is the thing you want to do if the condition is true. Okay, in my case the condition is true, and I am going to print out the value hi, the value is equal. Okay, and if you run the same, you see a message has been printed because the condition is true. So remember one thing, whenever you call the if condition, so after putting a if condition, you can see a white space here. So this white space is known as an indentation. Okay, indentation. So what is that indentation? Indentation is basically a representation of your things you are performing, okay, of your working. So why it is known as the representation of your working? Because in Python there is no requirement of using a curly braces. So how we can denote whether I am working inside my if condition or not? So for that I give an indentation, and by default, remember one thing, whenever you do any of the programming language, and let's say by default if you have given the indentation to tab, okay, you have given this much indentation, okay, this much spacing. So every time whenever you are going to write down the logic, so you have to use the same indentation. Okay, same spacing is going to be executed. It's like whatever you implement at the first time, the same is going to be represented every time. Okay, so remember one thing, to give an indentation as by default as a tab. Okay, so always use tab to give an indentation. Clear? Now if I make my condition as false, okay, so let's say give a number as 3 only, so the conditions become false, and if the conditions become false, I do not print out any value. Okay, so in that case, whenever your condition is false, so this statement is not going to be executed. So how we can execute if my condition is false? So we can use a else statement. So remember this thing, so else is a part of my if condition. Okay, so if condition, if statement, then the condition. So this is a true condition, then we are going to evaluate this. If the condition become false, so we are going to come inside the else part and we are going to print out any other message as I like. Okay, so sorry if we have missed out a colon, so just put a double dots or colon, and if you see, if the condition is false, so you print out a different message. Clear? Now let's say if you are interested to take an input from a user and then you want to execute it. Let's say if you are interested to get a number, okay, from a user. So how you get a number from a user? For getting a number, you call the input function. Okay, and in the input function you pass on any message you like, and if you see here, I put enter a number. Okay, and if you try to run the same, it is going to give you a prompt for giving a number. So you give a number and then you print it out. Okay, so let's say what I do, I give a number. So that number has been given, okay, and you see the number is there. But to assign this number into a variable, how you do that? So for assigning that to a variable, we give as var1, okay, or let's say input number, or let's say number 1, okay. So I take as this variable number underscore input, okay, I assign it, then I try to print out the type of my variable name. Okay, so if you run that, so first time it is going to ask for the value 10, and whenever you pass on the value, so you see the data type is going to be a string data type. Okay, so remember one thing, if you are using any, if you are taking any number from this input function, so it is being taken as the data, and that data type is a string data type. Okay, so this data type is a string data type. So how we can take any number as an input from the user? To take any number as an input from the user, you have to call a function that is called int over the input value. Okay, so you call this int function, which will convert, or which will explicitly convert the data type of my string value to my integer value. And now if you run that, so you see the value, whatever value you pass on, so that is being converted to a string data type now. Clear, guys? So this is how we represent any number as an integer data type by explicitly converting a string value to int. Okay, you can convert to any other data type, but make sure that data type should be supported. Okay, so if you are trying to convert any character value as an integer, so you cannot perform the same. Okay, so if you try to convert any letter, let's say A, B, C, to integer data type, so that cannot be converted. D type basically represent the data type. Okay, in case if you are getting the issues while joining the Telegram group, okay, so you can later on connect with the team and you can take a help from them. Okay, so there is a person who asked me about the doubt of how to catching the errors. For doing that, we will be going with the exception handling with the try, catch, else, and a finally keyword, but a little bit later on, but not today. Great. Now we see the data type, how to take the data type. So let's say again we run the same thing, okay, and we call the condition if my number which I have taken is, let's say, equals to 18. Okay, so what I say, I call, you call, you are adult. If you want to check multiple more conditions, okay, so rather than putting up a if again and writing down the same logic, so you can simply use else if. Okay, elif. So elif is used to check multiple conditions. So rather than using a if statement again, you can simply use a elif and you can pass on multiple condition. Let's say the values, if it is more than 18, so you are ready to vote. So if you run that, so if let's say you pass on just a second, okay, here, so you pass on a value, let's say 18, so you see a print message that let's say you are adult. If you run it again and if you try to print 20, So you see, you got a message, you are ready to vote. Okay, so in this way you can check multiple condition using your if and else if, and if in other case the condition is false, so if you execute the same and let's say you pass on a value 10, so the condition is false, you never print out the output, so you can use a else keyword. Okay, so you see now the condition is false. If the condition is false, so you see no available data. Clear? If you are interested to assign any variable, okay, don't give a space. If you give a space like this, so these are the three variables you are taking on, so always try to assign underscore or use. So this is known as a snake case. Okay, so for representing any variable with multiple names, okay, let's say you want to give a whole good name, so you don't give a space. Okay, so what you do, you use a snake case, user, age, or whatever value you want to use, or you either use a camel case. So in camel case, the first letter of the second word could be the capital one. So this is how we represent any variable. Clear, guys? Apart from all this, okay, we have the second one, that is called loops. Okay, so here we do not have, in Python we do not have a case statement. Okay, so in other languages we have a case statement, but not in Python. So remember one thing, the case statement in other programming languages is same as implementation of your if else part. Okay, so that we have here in other programming languages, but not in Python. So now we are going to talk about the looping statement. Okay, so what are these looping statements? So looping statement basically means, okay, checking or simply implementing means doing multiple things simultaneously, or doing multiple things repetitively. Okay, in a repeat order, or doing it again and again. So it's like, okay, we have a habit of, let's say we can have a habit of waking up in the morning every day. Okay, so if you are calling every day, means we are executing that particular routine on a daily basis. Okay, if I say you like, okay, you are let's say a part of REGex, so you are a part of REGex for the whole lifetime. Okay, so that means you are doing the same thing again and again, you are always a part of REGex. So looping statement means executing a particular value or executing a particular task again and again. For example, if I say on a daily basis, if I want to print a number, or let's say you say, for example, okay, you want to give a happy birthday message to any person, so what you do, you copy paste the things. Okay, so you are always copying the things, you are pasting it on the WhatsApp, you are copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. So what is that thing? That is a repetitive process. So there are some repetitive process which needs to be done in Python, and that we do with the help of our looping statements. And what are these looping statements? There are a lot of looping statements which are available. Like we have a for, so we have a for loop, we have a while loop, and we have a do while. Okay, so what is the use of for loop, and what are the use of the while loop? So when we go with for loop and when we go with while loop, this is the very common question. I have seen people not giving a proper answer. So if you are interested to go with for loop, or if you are interested to go with the while loop, okay, in which case we should use which of the loop format? So when we know how much time okay, we are going to run the loop. Okay, so that means we know how much time or how much time we are going to iterate means running a loop. If we know the number of times of running my loop, okay, then we simply go with for. But in case if you don't know how much it is going to be iterated, iteration is not defined, or you don't know how much time it is going to run, then you go with while loop. Okay, for example, if I give you a condition, let's say you want to find out all the prime numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, so if I give you a question, you have to find out all the prime numbers from 1 to 100. So you know, like, your iteration will go from 1 to 100 itself. Okay, you are going to run a loop from 1 onwards to 100. But okay, so in this case I am going to go with for loop. But if I give you a different question, you have to print out all the 100 prime numbers. Okay, you have to find 100 prime numbers. So you will be starting with 1, but you don't know these 100 prime numbers can be find out either from 1 to 100, from 1 to 200, from 1 to 500, from 1 to 1000, or from 1 to 10 lakhs. Okay, you don't know the exact number, okay, how much time you are going to run the loop. So in that cases we go with while loop. Okay, I have seen people giving a lot of wrong questions, wrong answers for any of the technical HR who ask you a question like, what is the difference between a for loop and a while loop? So what they give you answer, so they the participants give the answer like, sir, in for loop we give we don't give a condition, but in while loop we give a condition. Okay, in while loop we increment the value, but in for loop we do not increment the value. Okay, although that is not the case, in for loop also we give the value, we give the condition. In while loop we also give the same thing. The while loop we increment the value, so the same thing we do in the for loop. Okay, the only difference is about the iteration. Okay, got it everyone? Okay, now so let's see the first thing, that is called my while loop. Okay, so for example, let's say I have a value for, then we call the variable name. This is the syntax. Okay, then we call in. Okay, in is what? It is a membership operator. So we are going to check whether the variable is present in what. So we are going to see the value in my sequence. Okay, so we will talk about sequence. So sequence, or you can say we can generate it in a string, list, or range of values, or in tuple, or in dictionary. Okay, so these are being termed as the sequences. Okay, so we will come to this part, what is called as the sequences. Once we complete this part, the syntax, then we execute the statements later on. Okay, so the syntax is for, then the variable name, in any of the sequence like a string, list, range of values, tuple, or dictionary, and then we execute the statement. For example, if I have a data, and in that data I have a value, let's say, hi, this is REGex Software. So you call, let's say, for any variable, let's say count. Okay, you call in, you call data. Okay, so what this data represents? So this data represent a string value. So you are going to print out every string value one after the another using your for loop. So you call print out the count. So if you see, whenever you are going to run the same task, so every particular character has been printed one after the another. So loop means it will start printing out the value from one character, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on till the end. Okay, so this is what we have as a for loop. Okay, so the for loop can be executed in one more way, and that is the second way. The second way is implementing it with the help of my range function. So what this range function does, so this range function is used to generate a sequential value, and every values are unique. Okay, so if you see, this returns an object and produces a sequences of integer value. And if you see, the range has three particular notation. One is called start, stop, and the step. Okay, so these are the three arguments we have: start, stop, and step. Okay, and for example, if I pass on a value 1 and till 4, okay, so if you say for loop, so let's say for any value of count in range function, and if you see to 1 to 4 means start from 1 and get it till 4 and try to print out the value of my count. So you see, this range function has started the value from 1 to 4. Okay, so remember one thing, the last position we give. Okay, so I am giving a position to start the number to be generated from 1 and go till 4th. Okay, the 4th is the ending position. So remember one thing, in a range function, whenever you call the starting value, so it is going to be started, but the ending value will be generated less than 1. Okay, so if you have put it 4, so the value will be generated to 3. If you have put it 10, the value will be generated to 9 only. Okay, so you see, the values are generated till 9 only. Clear? This thing is clear to everyone? So this is how we basically create a range or the sequential value in Python. Now, so if you see, the numbers we have generated are from 1 to 10. Okay, now if we are interested to generate the numbers only and only the odd numbers. Okay, so where the odd numbers are present. Okay, the odd numbers are present like by skipping a number in the middle. Okay, so 2 has to be skipped, 4 has to be skipped, 6 has to be skipped, and so on. So whenever you create a range function, so by default the step size is 1. Okay, so step size is like a staircase. So if you see, there are let's say 10 staircase in your home, you are on the first one. Okay, so if you want to go to the 10th place, you will get 1 by 1. Okay, so that means you are taking one step at a time. But if you let's say pick 2 steps, mean if you skip one staircase, okay, in the staircase if you step one particular stair, so that means you are going from 1, you will skip the second one, you will go to the second one, from second one you will skip the one more stair, you will go to the next, again skip one stair, then go to the next, and so on. So basically you start with a number 1. Okay, so in number 2 you skip that value, you go to 3, you skip the 4th number, you go to 5, you skip the 6th number, you go to 7, and so on. Okay, so you are skipping a particular value. Okay, and that skipping of a particular value is being given with the help of a step here. Okay, so this is the argument we have that we call as a step. Okay, how you increment yourself, how you increment your value. So by default the increment value is 1 itself, so you generate the 1 2 3 4 5 6 in a sequential format. But if you change this sequential value to 2, so that means you will start taking a value and you will take the second value after that. Okay, so for like from 1 it will start, it will skip the one value, it will take the second value. So after 1 it will take 3, after 3 it will take 5, after then 7, 9, and so on. And if you run that, you see 1 3 5 7 9. Clear? Clear to all? Great. Now before going in depth with for loop, okay, we need to understand one thing that is quite great, and that we termed as a slicing and indexing. Okay, so this is basically a mechanism that we use in Python, okay, to get the data based on the index positions. Okay, for example, if you have any string value and okay, so let's say I gave a particular string value as data. Okay, so in this data, so every particular value we have is being represented to some particular index position. And what is that index position? Okay, so let's say the index position always start in Python from 0 onwards. Okay, so if we call, so the index position of the first keyword is 0, the next is 1, then we have for the spaces 2. Okay, for the keyword A, that is called 3, for an R, that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and so on. So the index position of every keyword is starting from 0 onwards here. Okay, so this is the index position of every particular character. The great thing about the Python is we can have the index position of any character from the last also. So that means the R that are present, okay, the letter R can be represented with -1, the U can be represented with -2, the same can be represented with any other character. So example, if I take a value as J A I P U R, okay, I am separating each word, okay, for understanding. Okay, so assume, so this Jaipur is going to be taken 0, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is a 4 and this is a 5. Or you can represent the same characters from the last onwards, so -1, -2, -3, -4 and so on. Clear? So -3, -4 and so on. Clear? Yes, that is clear. How we represent the indexing of every particular character that is available in Python. Okay, yes, that is known as the forward indexing and that is known as the backward or a reverse indexing of every particular character or a string data or every other elements. Okay, now, so for example, if I am interested to access any particular character, so I call data and we put up the index position as 0. So if you run that, so you see W has been printed. If you call data and if you put any other index position in the square brackets, so you see that particular character only. Okay, so white space is there. If you print 3, you will print out any other letter like A, B, C, whatever is there. Fine. Now, so the index position of every data, if you start it from the beginning, so that the index position start from 0. If you start looking for the index position of any keyword from the last, so it start from -1 itself. So this is known as the index, so the position of your character value. Okay, so this is how we access any character data with of any position with this particular notation and the index position in the square bracket. Now if you want to get the data but from a particular index position to a particular position itself, okay, means you want to give, so as we have seen in the range function, so we have given the starting position, the ending position and the step size. So here also in slicing, okay, what we do, we get the sequences of value, okay, the sequence of character based on the index position. So what is the sequence? Means a range of characters from one position to another position, and here we represent the same thing. So in slicing we represent the same as starting position, the ending position and the step size. Okay, so let's say if I have given the starting position as 0, so that means I want to start looking for the data from beginning onwards, and let's say then we call the separator as colon. Okay, now the separator is colon. So if you call 0 and if you put colon, that means you want to start looking for the data from 0 index position till the end. Okay, so if you run that, you see you got the data from 0 index position till the end here. Okay, if you change it to 1, so you are going to skip the W character. Okay, and you are looking for the data from 1 onwards till the end. So you see you got the data from 1 onwards till the end. Okay. Now, so this is basically known as a slicing, where you give the starting position and ending position. Now if I change the ending position from 0 to 3, or let's say 0 to 6, so remember one thing, so the ending position is always less than 1. So if you have given 6, so the index position will be from 0 to 5 only. Okay, so ending position -1. So assume if your 6th position is any particular character, so what is the 6th position? So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we should get a space. Okay, in the output we should get a space, but whenever we are going to run that, so we will skip this space here. Okay, you see the space is not included. Or if you call 5, so you will get the value up to the 4th decimal or up to the 4th index position. Okay, so this is known as a slicing with the starting and the ending position. Okay, so this is the one approach. Apart from this, if you are not interested to give a starting position, so you can skip the starting position and you can give the ending position. So the ending position is 5, so you will start from beginning and will go to the 5th ending place. Okay, so this is again an approach which you can use to get the data up to the starting till the end. So whatever place you want to get the data, you can pass it there. Now this is the starting and the ending. So the same goes with the step size. So let's say if you are calling from 0 to 10th position, or let's say from 0 to 11th position, you want to get the data, so you get this data. So in this one, if you want to give a step size, means if you want to skip any particular character, let's say the starting is 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, so step size is by default set to 1. Okay, sorry, you should put a colon. So by default the step size is set to 1. Okay, if you want to change the step size, so let's say you want to get every even, the data which is on every even index. Okay, means 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 till 10th, so you will call 2. So you will get the data how? So you will get the data from 0 onwards till the 11th position, and you will get every even data. Why? Because the starting position is 0, so you will not take 1, you will take 2nd index position data, 4th index position data, 6th and 8th and 10th. Okay, you cannot go to 12th because the 12th position is never included here. Okay, so if you run that, so you see only the character which is there on 0, 2, 4, 6, 8th and 10th position. Okay, so this is how we give the value. Now you can also give the indexing, okay, from right side also. Okay, so for giving it from the right side, you call data -1. So -1 means representation of letter from the last. Okay, so I take this value for the representation here. Okay, so you see R. If you put -2, you will use U. If you put any other character, you will print out I or P. Okay, so this is a particular character. If you want to get a range of values, so let's say if you say I want to get the values from -6 onwards to -1. Okay, so you see JAIP. Okay, so why you cannot get the last character? Because if you put here, so -1 is the ending position, so ending position again if you call -1 here. Okay, So from the ending position, we always substitute or we always subtract a value. So let's say if you have passed us minus the ending position is 3, so the value you will receive is 3 minus 1, that means 2. So up to the second index position you will get the output. So here the index position is minus 1. So if you call minus 1 and you subtract minus 1 again, so you receive minus 2. So that means up to the minus 2 index position you are going to retrieve the data. Okay, so that is the reason you never get the R here. So what you can do, you can simply call minus 6 colon, and if you call minus 6 colon, then you can get the last value here. Okay, so this is how we can get the value from the negative index here. Okay, now if you are interested to get the value, okay, in a reversal order, okay, means if you want to print out the value as RUPIAJ, okay, so you call minus 1 to minus 6. So here minus 1 means get the value from R till J, and if you run that, so you see you got blank. Why you got a blank? Because if you see clearly, the starting position is 1, the ending position is minus 6, but by default the step size is 1 here. Okay, and if the starting position is minus 1 here and you are calling a step size as 1, so the output should be 0. Okay, then but that 0 is not within the range as you have mentioned. Okay, so that is the reason you got nothing. Okay, because the step sizes is in the positive value, and if it is in the positive value from minus 1, the step should be in a positive direction. Okay, so that means from, if assume like you are in the basement. Okay, so in basement, okay, if you are calling it 1, okay, or if you put a lift on the first position or the first floor, so you will go on the top, but that top is not within your range. Okay, so how you can get the value but in a reversal order? You can call a negative step size, and if you call a negative step size, again sorry, if you call a negative step size, so you see you get the values in a reversal order RUPIA, and you can give a next index position as 7, so you see RUPIAJ, so you get the Jaipur as in reversal order. Clear? So this is how we represent any data in a reversal order. So in case if you are interested to retrieve the data in all reversal way, okay, how you can do that? So if you call, sorry, okay, so if you represent any data as minus 1 colon colon minus 1, so you will retrieve the data from the end here till this one, but in a reverse order. So you see you get the data from here till here till the ending position, okay, in a reversal order. So RUPIJ, then city is being represented like this, pink is represented like this, from is represented here, R is represented here, and V is represented here. Great. Clear everyone? So this is known as slicing and indexing, and it plays a very important role whenever we go with the other data types like the list, tuple, dictionaries, working with the loops with the string values, working with list, finding out the elements with the list, and lot more things like the same. Okay, so in these places your string values and your slicing and indexings are going to be play a very vital role. Okay, so the first one is the starting position, okay, the second parameter is the ending position, and the third one is the step size. Okay, means how much value you want to take according to your requirement. Okay, so those who do not understand the step, it simply means if you are walking on a road, so that means you are taking one step at a time, but if you try to jump it, so you are skipping a particular step. Okay, so if you take a step from here and if you jump it, so you skip a particular steps which you usually take while walking. Okay, so the same cases with the step size. So the step size is by default set to 1, so you take every value one after the another, but if you want to skip that, so you pass on the value like 2, 3, 10 according to your requirement. Okay, now so that's it for the today's session. So in the next session we are going to start working with more with conditional statements, working with loops, and looking at more complex examples. Okay, we will implement the same. So I will request you, whenever you come in the next session, okay, please have a revision of all the things we have performed today, and hopefully we can do a lot of more practice and lot more things in practical for the Python. Okay, yes, so thank you everyone and have a great day. And for the video so in the video description, so you can find out any notes, so I will just provide it there, so you can refer those notes, or in case you are interested for getting the recordings, so you can directly subscribe to our YouTube channel, and whenever the video will be processed, so I hope just in 5 to 10 minutes, so you will see a video in the description on our channel, so you can visit there and you can watch out the video. Okay, for this source code, fine, so I will do one thing. So let me rename this and I will share this file in the video description so that you can see it from there. Okay, let's say session 2. Okay, so I will share it from here and I will share with your team, so the team can share with you. Okay, the attendance is already being taken from by the team. Okay, don't worry about the same. Now, all right, thank you everyone, have a great day, enjoy your learning, and see you tomorrow.